Just practice from the March 18th, 2015 talk, Mental Factors, Part 1. Today we will talk about mental factors. There are 52 mental factors, or mental concomitants. We have experience with all of these mental factors, although we may not know their name or nature. But now we'll talk about what we've already experienced in our daily lives. We have 4 realities: consciousness, mental factors, materiality, and nibbamana. Today we're talking about mental factors. All of these mental factors depend on consciousness. Without consciousness, they cannot arise. So, dependent on consciousness, all of these mental factors arise. And the mental factors have influence on consciousness. 2 weeks ago, one gentleman asked me which of the two, consciousness or mental factors, is more powerful. What do you think? Mental factors are more powerful. There are a lot of similes about consciousness and mental factors. I'll share 2 now. One family has a lot of children. Who is the father? He is the leader of the family. He takes a lot of responsibility for the family. But the mother influences the father. As she asks her husband to do something, he does it. And husbands depend on wives. What his wife asks him to do, he just does it. So father and mother, or husband and wife, who's more powerful? The wife, right? In this simile, consciousness is like the father, and mental factors are like the mother. So mental factors influence consciousness. That's one simile. In the old days, it wasn't like today, where we have modern technology and specialized equipment. In those days, most people worked in the jungle with big, ancient trees. When they cut down a tree, a man couldn't move it. So what did he have to use? An elephant. An elephant has energy and strength to move a big tree here and there. The man cannot move it, but the rider gives the orders to the elephant to move it. And then, the elephant moves the logs. So who's more powerful, the elephant or the rider? The rider is more powerful, right? In the same way, mental factors are more powerful than consciousness. These mental factors have 4 characteristics. 1. They arise together with consciousness. 2. They perish together with consciousness. So they arise and perish together. 3. They share a common object with consciousness. We have 6 objects: visible objects, sounds, smells, tastes, tangible objects, and mental objects. If one consciousness takes 235, the collected teachings of Luang Por Chaya, one of the 6 objects, such as a visible object, the mental factors also take the visible object. So they take a common object. And 4, they have the same bases. We have 6 bases. Without the bases, consciousness cannot arise. The 6 bases are the eye base, ear base, nose base, tongue base, body base, and heart base. What does eye base mean? Eye sensitivity, and ear sensitivity is the ear base, and so on. So we have 6 bases. All of these mental factors have these bases in common with consciousness. So they have 4 characteristics. They arise together, perish together, take the same objects, and have the same bases. Now that we know the characteristics, we will go through them individually. Individually, we have 52 mental factors. Even though we have 52, don't worry about it. We've already experienced a lot of them. We already know almost all of them. We will divide them by group. First are universal mental factors. This means that whatever type of consciousness arises, 7 kinds of mental factors will be associated all the time. So, maybe wholesome consciousness or unwholesome consciousness, subtle consciousness or functional consciousness, any type of consciousness arises. These 7 universal mental factors will be associated with it. We call these universal mental factors, or we can call them essential mental factors. What are they? Contact, feeling, perception, volition, one-pointedness of mind, life faculty, and attention. These 7 mental factors are called universal mental factors. Let's talk about them a bit. 1. Contact, or mental impression. Contact furnishes the contact between the six sense objects, or the six sense bases, and consciousness. Without contact, no sense impression will arise. Sense impression is, for example, if you see something, then you have seen consciousness, or eye consciousness. So without contact, this eye consciousness will not arise. If there's no eye consciousness, then there's no receiving, or investigating, or determination consciousness, and so on. So this contact is very important too. I don't want to go into detail. There are a lot of examples. For now, I just want to go to the law of causal relations. But try to remember 236. Just practice what I'm mentioning now about contact. Contact is not rupa. It's mental factors. See that, right? 2. Feeling. This means enjoying the taste of an object. You see something, I like that, or I don't like that. This is feeling. This pleasant feeling, or unpleasant feeling, I'm calling enjoying the taste of an object. When we see, hear, smell, taste, touch, or think about something, we have this feeling. The characteristic of this feeling is enjoying the taste of an object. Jhavana. 3. Perception. This is contemplation of an object by way of mind. So you remember your name, your family's name, you know which one is your car, your house, your mom, your dad, your friend. You know this temple, this street, this road. This is perception. Different colors and so on, they have their function. This is perception. When we study the 5 aggregates, we learn that feeling is one kind of aggregate. Perception is another kind of aggregate. The remaining 50 mental factors are called sankhara, which we translate as mental formations. 4. Volition. This is intention. It determines whether any kind of action is wholesome or unwholesome. The Buddha said that volition is called kama. So based on this kama, what will good or bad actions produce? Good or bad results. So when you do something with intention, you will see the good or bad consequences. But without intention, even if you hurt someone, it's not kama. Volition is the dominant mental factor in mundane consciousness. For supramundane consciousness, wisdom is the dominant factor. Even nowadays, someone commits a crime and goes to court. The judge has to examine, to investigate, the man or woman to determine whether they did the act with intention. If no intention, no guilt, this is not kama. We need to understand this. As another example, you drive a car and accidentally kill an animal. No intention, right? Then there's no kama to give bad results. But if you intend to do it, it's your kama. And as it is kama, you will receive a bad result. The Buddha said that volition is kama. 237. The collected teachings of Luang Por Chaya 5, one-pointedness of mind. Whatever you do, good or bad, this one-pointedness of mind is always associated with consciousness. So if you go hunting or fishing, you have to have one-pointedness of mind. That's why it's associated with both unwholesome and wholesome consciousness. But if we develop one-pointedness of mind, we cultivate it, and we gain concentration, we can develop and strengthen the mental faculties until they become the factors of enlightenment. It can become part of the Noble Eightfold Path, so we need to develop this. We need to make it more powerful, higher and higher, stronger and stronger. From this concentration, we will produce wisdom. 6. Life faculty. This infuses life into consciousness and mental factors, which are associated with it. It is like a lotus. What sustains a lotus? Water. The life faculty sustains consciousness and mental factors until we die. So if someone dies, there's no life faculty. Think about something. Maybe you don't cut a tree because the plant has life. The life of a plant is one thing, but life faculty is another. The life faculty depends on kama, what we have done in previous lives. But the life of a plant, what's the cause? Heat. It's not from kama. We need to understand this. If you cut a tree or a plant, it's not the same. Some think it is life, right? We have 2 kinds of life faculty: psychic life and physical life. What sustains our body? There are 28 types of materiality for us to sustain our physical life until we die. When we die, the psychic life and physical life end. And 7. Attention. The mental factors associate with the object. That's why we can see, we can hear, smell, or taste. Because of this contact, feeling, perception, volition, one-pointedness of mind, life faculty, and attention. So please remember this for knowledge. When you see something, for example, there are only these 7 types of mental factors associated with eye consciousness. No more than 7. When you see, hear, smell, taste, or touch something, in that moment of eye consciousness and air consciousness and so on, there are these 7 mental factors. We call these the 7 universal mental factors. 238. Just practice. The next group is occasional mental factors. There are 6 of these particular mental factors: initial application, sustained application, decision or determination, energy or effort, exertion, rapture or interest, and will. These 6 occasional mental factors can associate with what we call unbeautiful consciousness and beautiful consciousness, but not with every consciousness, only some of them. 1. Initial application. This applies consciousness and mental factors to the object. 2. Sustained application. This refers to sustained consciousness and mental factors on the object, again and again. These 2 factors have their function, their nature. Initial application applies mental factors to the object, and sustained application sustains the mental factors on the subject again and again. We need to differentiate between initial application and sustained application. For the simile here, it's like a bee that flies around in the air and then directs itself to a flower bush. That's initial application. Sustained application is like flying around the flower bush again and again. So when you practice meditation, you focus on your primary object of meditation. This is initial application. And then, with sustained application, you investigate it and stay around the object, so their nature is different. That's why the Buddha called them different things. When we practice meditation, we will experience this. 3. Decision or determination. This is like a justice at the court who decides a case. Decides who's wrong and who's right. Here, decision is when you see some object or hear some object and determine whether the object is good or bad. So even though the nature of the various mental factors is different, they work together. It's like if a group of people wants to do something, everyone does their specific duty, and the work gets done. In the same way, all of these mental factors have their function. They do their duty, they start to work together, and they finish their job together, right? That's why their characteristic is to arise and perish together to make consciousness. 239. The collected teachings of Luang Por Chaya 4. Energy, effort, or exertion. This is very important. This supports, upholds, and uplifts consciousness and mental factors. Energy is the root of all action. Without energy, you will not have success in anything in your life. Whatever you do, education, business, or whatever, what do you need? You need energy and effort. That's why it's the main root of action. I used to remind our people, what do we need for whatever we do? We need energy, knowledge, and good karma, merit. With these 3 things working together, we don't have to worry. We'll find success. If you just try but don't have knowledge, you won't reach your goal. If you have knowledge and ability but don't use it because you're lazy, you won't be successful, right? Even if you have knowledge and you try the best you can, if there's no good karma supporting you, you won't be successful. So we need 3 kinds of things to be perfect. That's why we need to try to do good things. This will protect and support us to be successful. 5. Rapture or interest. This is not a kind of feeling or sensation. Rapture means creating mindful interest. It's like applying appropriate effort to something and being happy about the results. It is happiness. When we practice meditation, there are 5 kinds of rapture. When you gain some concentration, one kind of rapture will arise. Sometimes other types will arise. It depends on your concentration. And sometimes it may arise for many days, or maybe just a few days, maybe just one day, or maybe just one time. Again, it depends on your concentration. 6. Desire or will. In Pali, it's called chanda. It's the will to do. Chanda and lobha are different. Chanda is the wish to do something, but with no attachment. See that? If you attach to something or someone, it's lobha. If we have sensual desire, this is lobha. On the other hand, just wishing to do something without attachment is chanda. For example, all of you want to come here to the temple, but there's no attachment, right? So you go. Without wishing, you can't do anything. You want to eat, so you eat. You want to drink, so you drink. When this wish intensifies, it becomes will. Success starts from your wish to do or know something or go somewhere. As your wish 240 just practice intensifies, it becomes will. And will leads to success. With regard to practicing meditation, you want to gain meditative absorption, you want to gain enlightenment, and you want to experience nibbana. What is the essence of that? Lobha or chanda? Chanda. It's a righteous wish. Don't be confused about that. Some people think that if you want something, it's lobha. It's not lobha, because you're not attached to anything. If you don't have a wish, you won't do or gain anything. We start from the first step, right? Then try to improve it, higher and higher. And then it leads to success. We've talked about the 7 universal mental factors and the 6 occasional mental factors. So, together there are 13 of these. These 13 are called the general mental factors. They can be associated with unbeautiful consciousness and beautiful consciousness. Next, we'll go to unwholesome mental factors. We have 14 of these. The first 4 include 1. Moha, or delusion. 2. Shamelessness. 3. Fearlessness of wrongdoing. And 4. Restlessness. These 4 mental factors are unwholesome universal mental factors. Why do we call them universal? Because no matter what type of unwholesome consciousness arises, these 4 are always associated with it. I'll talk about them in more detail. 1. Delusion is very dangerous. It's the primary root of all unwholesome action and suffering in the world. Ignorance won't let you see the nature of the object. It clouds the mind and blinds the eye. You won't see the right thing. Because of delusion, lobha and dosa can arise, but if you know the nature of the object, it won't cloud the mind or blind the eye. And then, you won't have lobha or dosa. That's why moha is the primary root of all evil and suffering in the world. What's the purpose of practicing meditation? To see the nature of mind and matter for what they really are. We try to reduce delusion, and finally, to remove it, right? 2. Shamelessness means you don't feel any shame about doing something unwholesome in deed, speech, or thought. 3. Fearlessness means you have no fear of committing unwholesome deeds. Why might someone think about 241 the collected teachings of Luang Por Chaya violating the 5 precepts? Delusion, shamelessness, and fearlessness. If we have moral shame and moral fear, we won't do any unwholesome actions by deed or speech. All of this is the cause of suffering. And 4. Restlessness. We may sit in meditation for 1 hour, but for how many of those minutes does our mind go out? This is restlessness. We have to reduce that. But how? There is no way to reduce restlessness without practicing meditation. The Buddha knew everything. He knew the nature of this consciousness and of these mental factors, good or bad. As he knew, out of compassion he tried to teach us. So we know the technique, the method, and the solution to deal with all of this restlessness. When we sit in meditation, we try to be aware of whatever kind of object appears in the moment. To do that, we need initial application and sustained application to direct our attention to the object and to be aware of what happens. And then, there's no room for restlessness. Even if restlessness arises, it doesn't do so again and again. It doesn't last long, because you try to be aware. You will know that your mind has wandered, and you will make a mental note. Wandering, wandering, and it stops. See that? Instead of wandering off for a few minutes, it maybe wanders for half a minute, and done. So we need to practice meditation to reduce restlessness and distraction. Another group is greed, wrong view, and conceit. 1. Lobha, or greed, is also attachment or sensual desire. We feel this all the time, right? Every day, we have greed, attachment, and sensual desire. I want this. I want that. I like this or I like that. You want to see something, hear something, smell something, taste something, touch something, and so on. This is lobha. 2. Wrong view. This is misbelief. Personality is delusion. As an example, we have 62 kinds of wrong view, and 3, conceit, or pride. 242. Just practice these 3, greed, wrong view, and conceit, are responsible for extending the life cycle. We have to be reborn and die, and be reborn again and again. Because of what? Because of greed, wrong view, and conceit. With regard to conceit, we have 3 kinds. 1. Equality conceit. This means you compare yourself with someone else and think you're equal to them. As they know this, I know that too. You think you're equal. 2. Superiority conceit. I am better than that person, or I'm richer, and so on. You think you're higher than others. And 3. Inferiority conceit. You think you are lower than someone else. You think you're not as good as them. This is conceit. Mostly, people fall into the second category. I know better than them, or I'm richer, and so on. These 3 mental factors, greed, wrong view, and conceit, just associate with unwholesome consciousness rooted in greed. It's not related to dosa and moha. Another mental factor is dosa. We actually have hatred, envy, avarice, and remorse. These 4 mental factors are associated with dosa, unwholesome consciousness rooted in hatred. Let's talk about these mental factors. 1. Hatred or anger or aversion is the most destructive element in the world. Fighting, killing, and outrage. What's the root? Hatred, right? So what do we need to have peace in the world? We need loving kindness. It's the opposite of anger. 2. Envy. So much of what we see or hear about in the world is terrible. There's so much anger and jealousy. People feel jealous about another's success or prosperity. Sometimes you feel jealous about these things. 3. Avarice is stinginess or selfishness. We have 5 kinds of avarice. A. Stinginess with regard to one's dwelling place. You have a place, but you don't want anyone to come and stay there. 243. The collected teachings of Luang Porchaya B. Stinginess with regard to the family. You don't want others to come and get involved with or talk to your family. It's not just the family either. This includes your friends or your partner too. You don't want anyone to get involved with them. C. Stinginess with regard to gain. You do something good with your business, but you don't want anyone to gain like you, so you don't tell them how to do it, and so on. D. Stinginess with regard to recognition or fame and beauty. Maybe you are a famous person, but you don't want anyone to be famous like you. Or maybe you're handsome or beautiful and you don't want someone else to look as good as you. And E. Stinginess with regard to knowledge or wisdom. You don't want to impart your knowledge to someone else. You know everything, but keep it to yourself. You don't want to tell others. Stinginess is an unwholesome mental factor. We're not supposed to have this, so we have to study this. As we know this, we shouldn't be stingy about these things. We should share these things with others. If we have selflessness, we share these things with others. We share our belongings, our dwelling place. We invite others to sit and stay with us, our family, and our friends. We want to share these relationships with others. When someone comes to talk with them, we're happy for them. If someone's very lucky, we're happy about that. if someone is famous, we're happy about that too. And whatever we have with regard to worldly knowledge or spiritual knowing, the Dhamma, we impart to others. Otherwise, it becomes unwholesome stinginess. 4. Remorse, or worry. Remorse in this context means grieving over the evil that you have done and over the good that you have not done. This means you feel regret about the past. You had an opportunity to do something good, but you missed it. You didn't do it, and now you feel remorse. This is an unwholesome mental factor. If you did something bad in the past based upon greed, anger, 244, just practice delusion or jealousy, you'll think about it and reflect, I'm not supposed to do that. You'll feel sorry and have remorse. You'll regret it. When you practice meditation and gain some concentration, you may think back to when you were very young and feel sorry about something you did. This is an unwholesome mental factor, so what do we need to do? Just be aware of it and stop, then go back to your primary object. These 4 mental factors, hatred, envy, avarice, and remorse, are associated with dosa unwholesome consciousness rooted in hatred only. The next mental factor is sloth and torpor. This mental factor is a sickness of the mind. Sloth means that when you sit idle, you lack effort and feel lazy. When you practice meditation, you want to give up. You don't want to continue the practice. You feel sleepy. Sloth and torpor especially come to disturb us when we practice meditation. The Buddha said this is a mental hindrance. If we don't do the right things to protect ourselves, sloth and torpor will come and disturb us while we're listening to the Dhamma, and especially when we're practicing meditation. What do we have to do? Fortunately, we have an antidote for sloth and torpor. And the last mental factor in this group is doubt, skeptical doubt, indecision or perplexity. You can't make a decision. You're confused. In particular, you may have doubt about karma, about the source of karma, about past lives, about this life, and about the 4 Noble Truths. As you have doubt about these things, you cannot gain concentration. You will not have energy to practice. When doubt arises, just be aware of it. Today we have talked about the 13 general mental factors and the 14 unwholesome mental factors, so 27 mental factors. As we know them now, what do we have to do? You know yourself. Right now in this present moment, what types of unwholesome mental factors have arisen? You know that. As you know them, don't accept them. Let them go. We study Abhidhamma, we study ourselves, and we study our mind. I would like all of you to try to remember the terms and their natures, and to investigate your mind, your mental factors, every day to see whether your mental factors are good or bad. Try to eliminate all unwholesome mental factors, and then we have to improve the wholesome or beautiful mental factors, which we'll talk about another time. 245. The Collected Teachings of Luang Por Chaya. For today, I just want all of you to study the 7 universal mental factors, the 6 occasional mental factors, and most importantly, the 14 unwholesome mental factors. We need to reduce them and to eliminate them. If you practice meditation and gain the first stage of enlightenment and become a stream enterer, there is no longer any wrong view or doubt. See that? You can uproot these 2 kinds of mental factors. I'd like all of you to be able to study this and put it into practice. By practicing meditation, I would like you to be able to uproot wrong view and doubt, and gain the first stage of enlightenment, and become a stream enterer in this life. Q. What is the difference between wrong view and delusion? They are very close. Delusion is moha. It is ignorance of the nature of an object. Moha is a universal mental factor that can associate with lobha, dosa, and moha consciousness. Moha can associate with 12 kinds of unwholesome consciousness, whereas for wrong view there are just 4. If you gain the first stage of enlightenment, there's no more wrong view, but you still have moha. When you become an arahant, there's no more moha. So moha is ignorance of the nature of an object. But wrong view is, for example, having the wrong belief about something. Q. Thank you. I have another question. If no one else has any, another student responds. Q. I don't ask a question because I know everything. A lot of laughter in the room. Q. In the case of perception, it's only mental, right? Yes. Even though you use your senses to perceive physical things, it's still considered mental. Q. What would be the Pali term for cognition? Sanjanya. Cognition and perception are the same. 246. Just practice Q. But what if I have a visual perception versus a thought? Cognition is a mental process, and it includes sanjanya. Q. So the last unwholesome mental factor is doubt, right? What consciousness group is doubt associated with? Doubt is only associated with doubt, consciousness. Of the mental factors we talked about tonight, which arises in your mind the most? Doubt? Q. Sloth and torpor. Try to reduce it. And finally, remove it. 247.